calm has returned to Mali's capital, Bamako. But earlier, the city was a crime scene. Insurgents targeted a military training school and other strategic locations in Bamako, including Mali's main international airport. During the targeted attacks, residents say a suspected insurgent was set on fire by a mob.
The guy set on fire was part of the action. When a taxi man asked him why he was here, he panicked. People started questioning him, and they found that he was carrying a bullet belt under his clothes. He was a normal guy around us, and he used to sell cigarettes and candies. After they removed the belt, they set him on fire.
The army has, however, assured that order has been restored and that the situation is under control.
I really want to assure the Malian people that they can go about their businesses freely. The situation has been taken into account by the Malian armed forces, and the terrorists who had infiltrated have been neutralized.
Mali has been a target of different factions affiliated to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State groups since 2012. Bamako has, however, normally been spared this sort of attacks. The nation's military leaders have pledged to regain control of the whole country. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
We now go to the Malian capital for an update on the situation from our correspondent Mamadou Tapili in Bamako.
Very soon after the shots rang out, the area was barricaded by the security forces and the police. A few hours later, the Chief of Staff of Army, General of Division Umaru Jara, issued a statement describing the attack as terrorist attack and declaring that the situation was already under control with the arrest of dozens of alleged terrorists. He also invited the Malian populations to denounce any suspicious movements in the area. Well, it's an attack among multiple others in the country since the beginning of the crisis. It's rare because the capital city, Bamako, has been spared from attack for quite some time. Apart from the one that happened in the Radisson Hotel in 2015 and the one of the Sunjata military base in Kati last year. While the Malian armed forces launched a vast operation to recapture the territory, terrorists choose to strike in the capital city of Bamako. It's somehow to demonstrate that their presence and also to give impression that they can strike wherever and whenever they want. But one thing to remember of what occurred today is the reaction of the local populations who contributed to help the armed forces to ferret out the few terrorists hiding in the surrounding houses. As far as the current situation is concerned, the government has not yet issued an official statement concerning the human toll and material damage of the whole situation.
David Otto Endeley, the director for the Geneva Center for Africa Security and Strategic Studies, is joining us live from London to shed more light on the security situation in Mali. Hi there, David. Always good having you on the program. David, what possible motives do you think the assailants had to attack Bamako?
Well, Hannah, I think there are a number of motivations. Bamako is the heart of Mali, and that's the seat of power, you know, for the military junta that took power since 2020. So I think it's very critical for the insurgency groups, of course, Jenim, that is linked to Al-Qaeda, to demonstrate to the authorities of Mali that it does have the ability to establish cells, not just in the north or the south, but specifically in the heart of the seat on power. So what they've done by actually targeting the military, gendarmerie, infrastructure, and also targeting the airport, it's a demonstration that they can, attack hard targets, but they can also launch attack against critical infrastructure, which also strikes a node of terror amongst the civilian population. So, Al-Qaeda, affiliate Jenim is making a very strong statement and kind of stretching the strategy that, the Malian government has been putting in place since it took power in 2020.
So, David, authorities are reporting restoring security in the capital, but what does this attack say about Mali's vulnerabilities and capabilities of the insurgents?
Well, it does demonstrate, as we've seen before. And one thing that one must always take into cognizance is the fact that insurgency groups are very difficult to have a grasp on because, of course, they can blend themselves within the civilian population. But, I mean, this is the modus operandi. They are what you call the invincible enemy. And it demonstrates that, the government is still lacking the ability to actually detect, what I call the threat assessment, which, of course, has now expanded towards Bamako, which is the capital. So I think, what the military government is going to be thinking about at this point in time is, how do they work with the civilian population? But it's very critical to show that, to realize at this point in time that, the so-called jihadists that are linked to Al-Qaeda Jenim group, have infiltrated the capital, and it then poses a very powerful, operational task, for the military government to ensure that the promises that it made, and one of the key rationale why they took power was down to insecurity, that it then has a very huge task in its hands to defend the sovereignty and integrity of the country Mali.
So, David, what now? What measures need to be put in place to deter future insurgencies in Mali and also the wider Sahel region?
I think there isn't much, that has not been said before. Mali is a member of the Alliance of Sahel States, and the 16th, which was yesterday, significantly was the one-year anniversary, and that tells you that timing was quite critical, and that this was an attack that has been planned for quite some time, to kind of come at this particular moment when the three Liptako Goma countries are celebrating, what they call their defense alliance. So it then strikes a nod, to the fact that, Mali being the head of the Alliance of Sahel States, President Colonel Assimi Goïta being the lead, it therefore means that the alliance needs more to do, not just as an alliance, but individual member states, need to understand, how to measure the threat of jihadist groups. Remember that, Mali still has, despite the enormous support, still has dissent, within the population, people that want some kind of a transition to democratic process. So it then allows some members of the population, to see something and say nothing, which gives the jihadists the opportunity to hide and operate and plan and launch attacks. So the government, within these Sahel states, need to develop an individual country-based counter-insurgency measures, and that includes understanding how these groups operate, how they raise their money, how they get their weapons, but also protecting some very critical infrastructures. For example, the airports, the military units that they've been attacked. These are all indications that the government still has a lot to do, not just as a member, but also as not just as a country, but also as a member of the regional bloc, the Alliance of Sahel States.